Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. For months, I had sensed something was wrong. Emily, my wife of 10 years, had grown distant. Her laugh no longer echoed in our home, and the warmth in her eyes seemed to flicker like a candle in a draft. But I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the late nights at work, the hushed phone calls, or the mysterious texts that made her smile with a secret she wouldn't share. I needed to know, but more than that, I needed to fix whatever was broken between us. That's why I planned a special surprise for her birthday. Emily always loved spas. The tranquility, the pampering, the escape from the mundane, it was her sanctuary. So I booked her a full-day package at La Serene, the best spa in the city. Don't deny yourself anything, I had told her with a warm smile, handing her the beautifully wrapped certificate. Happy birthday, Emily. I hope this helps you unwind. Her eyes had lit up for a moment, and I saw a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with. She kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Thank you, Alex. This means a lot." Today I was going to take it a step further. I had bought her a new phone, something she had been eyeing for months but never bought for herself. I wanted to see that smile again, to reconnect. As I walked into La Serene, the soothing scent of lavender and the soft sounds of cascading water greeted me. I asked the receptionist where I could find Emily, and she pointed me towards the massage rooms. With the phone hidden behind my back, I approached the door with a sign that read "Massage in Progress." I wanted to surprise her, see her face light up. But as I got closer, I heard its soft, unmistakable moans of pleasure. My heart raced, a mix of excitement and apprehension. What if she was just enjoying a particularly good massage? I couldn't stop myself. I turned the knob and slowly pushed the door open, peeking through the crack. What I saw made my blood run cold. Emily was on the massage table, her body glistening with oil, but it wasn't just the masseur's hands on her back. He was on top of her, his movements rhythmic and intimate. The look on her face was one of pure ecstasy, a look I hadn't seen in years, and certainly never directed at me. I felt the world crumble beneath my feet. Anger, hurt, betrayal, emotions I couldn't even name surged through me. I wanted to storm in, to drag him off her, to demand an explanation, but a cold, calculating part of me held back. No, there had to be a better way. A way to make her feel the same pain, the same humiliation. I slipped back out, closing the door silently. The receptionist gave me a curious glance, but I just nodded, trying to keep my composure. Outside, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I had to think, to plan. First, I needed to gather evidence. My initial impulse was to confront her, but that would only lead to a messy argument and no resolution. Instead, I decided to use technology. I installed a discreet camera in our bedroom, another in the living room, and a GPS tracker on her car. It was invasive, but I needed to know the extent of her betrayal. Over the next few weeks, I collected more than enough proof. Emily's affair wasn't just a one-time fling, it was a regular occurrence. Different men, different places, but always the same look of betrayal on my face as I watched the footage. My mind raced with ideas for revenge. I wanted her to feel the same agony, the same despair. To begin with, I started being extra attentive, extra loving, as if nothing was wrong. I bought her flowers, cooked her favorite meals, and acted like the perfect husband. I could see the guilt gnawing at her, but she never confessed. Then came phase 2. I started spending more time at work, pretending to be busy with new projects. I knew she would use the opportunity to meet her lovers, and I made sure to capture every moment. I became distant, emotionally unavailable, just as she had been. It was subtle, but effective. Finally, the day came when I had enough evidence to confront her. But I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted a spectacle. I arranged for a small gathering at our house, inviting close friends and family under the pretense of celebrating our anniversary. I set up the TV in the living room, connected to my laptop, ready to display the sordid truth. As the evening wore on, Emily seemed uneasy, sensing that something was off. When everyone was settled, glasses of wine in hand, I stood up and tapped my glass. "Thank you all for coming," I began, forcing a smile. "I have a special presentation to share with you all. It's a tribute to my beloved wife, Emily." Her eyes widened in panic as the first video started playing. The room fell silent, the only sound the soft gasps of our friends and family as they watched the undeniable proof of her infidelity. Tears streamed down Emily's face, and she looked at me with a mixture of anger and despair. But I wasn't done. Emily, for your birthday, I wanted to give you something special. A chance to come clean, to start over. But you chose to betray me instead. So here's your real gift, the truth, laid bare for everyone to see. She ran out of the room, sobbing, but I didn't follow. I stayed with our guests, answering their shocked questions, feeling a cold satisfaction settle over me. Revenge was sweet, but this was just the beginning. I had more plans, more ways to make her regret every moment of her betrayal. As the night ended and the last guest left, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of our shattered life. The phone, the one I had bought for her, lay on the table, a cruel reminder of the day everything changed. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, and smiled. This was just the start of my retribution. Emily would learn what it meant to be betrayed.
The night after the party, I barely slept. The adrenaline from my revelation kept me wired, but as dawn broke, a heavy fatigue settled over me. Emily was gone. She had left a tear-stained note on the kitchen counter, her words a jumbled mix of apologies and excuses. But I didn't care. Her betrayal was burned into my mind, and my plans were far from over.
At work, I buried myself in projects, letting the routine distract me from the gnawing anger. But my mind kept drifting back to Emily, to the look on her face as she realized her secrets were out. It wasn't enough. She needed to feel the consequences in every part of her life. I called my friend Mark, a private investigator. We had been close since college, and he owed me a few favors. I needed him to dig deeper into Emily's activities, to find out who her lovers were, where they met, and what secrets they might have. Mark was efficient and discreet, and within a few days he had a list of names and places. One name stood out: Ryan Matthews. He was a wealthy businessman, known for his shady deals and numerous affairs. He had the kind of power and influence that could ruin lives with a snap of his fingers. I decided to pay him a visit. Ryan's office was in a sleek, high-rise building downtown. I walked in, my heart pounding, but my face a mask of calm determination. The receptionist, a young woman with bright red hair, looked up and smiled. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I'm sure Mr. Matthews will want to see me," I said, handing her my business card. "Tell him it's about Emily." She hesitated but then nodded, picking up the phone and murmuring into it. A moment later she looked up. "Mr. Matthews will see you now." I was led into a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Ryan stood by his desk, his expression unreadable. "Alex, is it? What can I do for you?" I stepped forward, my eyes locking onto his. "You can start by staying away from my wife." Ryan raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Emily? Ah, I see. You must be the husband. She mentioned you once or twice." My fists clenched at his casual tone. "She's not just a name in your little black book. She's my wife, and you've been sleeping with her." Ryan sighed, sitting down and gesturing for me to take a seat. "Look, Alex, what Emily and I had was an arrangement, nothing more. If you want to blame someone, blame her. She's the one who came to me." The cold truth in his words stung, but I didn't flinch. "This isn't just about blame, Ryan. It's about consequences. If you don't stay away from her, I'll make sure your business dealings come under a lot of scrutiny. I have friends in places that can make your life very difficult." Ryan's smirk faded, replaced by a calculating look. "You're serious?" "Try me," I said, standing up. "This is your only warning." As I left his office, I felt a grim satisfaction. But there was still more to do. I needed allies, people who could help me in my quest for retribution. I called Sarah, Emily's best friend. She had been distant lately, but we had always gotten along well. She answered on the third ring, her voice cautious. "Alex, what's going on?"
"Sarah, I need to talk to you. Can we meet?"
There was a pause. I guess. Where? We agreed on a cafe near her office. When I arrived, Sarah was already there, nursing a cup of coffee. She looked up as I approached, her eyes wary. "Alex, what's this about?" I sat down, taking a deep breath. I know about Emily's affairs, Sarah. I need your help to set things right. Her eyes widened, and she glanced around nervously. Alex, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Sarah. I've seen the evidence. I just need to know if you're on my side or hers. She sighed, rubbing her temples. I didn't know how to tell you, Emily. She's been unhappy for a long time. She felt neglected, like you didn't care anymore. Her words cut deep, but I kept my composure. So she decided to sleep with other men. It's not that simple. She was lonely, Alex. And then she met Ryan, and things just spiraled. I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. Sarah, I need your help to make her see the consequences of her actions. I'm not asking you to betray her, just to help me show her what she's done. Sarah looked conflicted, but eventually she nodded. Okay, Alex, what do you need me to do? Just keep me informed. If she contacts you, let me know. And if you hear anything about her plans, tell me. Sarah agreed, and we parted ways with a new understanding. As I walked back to my car, I felt a glimmer of hope. Emily had hurt me, but she wasn't untouchable. With the right allies and the right plan, I could make her regret every moment of her betrayal. The days turned into weeks, and my network grew. I enlisted the help of a tech-savvy friend, Jake, to keep tabs on Emily's phone and emails. Every move she made, I knew about it. It was invasive, it was wrong, but it was necessary. One evening, as I reviewed the latest updates from Jake, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Alex, she's planning to meet Ryan tonight. At the Blue Orchid Hotel. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I called Mark, explaining the situation. I need you to come with me. We're going to catch them in the act. Mark agreed, and we met at the hotel. We parked a discreet distance away and waited. Hours passed, and finally, we saw Emily's car pull up. She walked into the hotel, her head held high, oblivious to the storm brewing around her. We followed her inside, keeping a safe distance. She took the elevator to the top floor, and we waited for a few minutes before following. The penthouse suite, of course. Ryan never did things by halves. As we approached the door, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. This was it. The moment of truth. I nodded to Mark, and he knocked on the door. Ryan opened it, his eyes widening in surprise. What the hell? I pushed past him, storming into the suite. Emily was there, sitting on the edge of the bed, her face a mask of shock. Alex, what are you doing here? I think you know, I said coldly. It's over, Emily. I've had enough of your lies and betrayals. She stood up, tears streaming down her face. Alex, please let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I said, pulling out my phone and showing her the videos, the messages, the proof of her infidelity. This is what you've done to our marriage. She collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. Ryan tried to intervene, but Mark stepped in, keeping him at bay. This is between them, he said firmly. I looked at Emily, my heart aching with a mix of love and hatred. I trusted you, I loved you. And this is how you repay me.
She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm so sorry.
Sorry isn't enough, I said, my voice breaking. You've destroyed everything we had, and now you have to face the consequences. As I turned to leave, I felt a strange sense of closure. This was just the beginning, but it was a start. Emily would learn that betrayal comes at a price, and I would make sure she paid it in full. The days following the confrontation at the Blue Orchid Hotel were a whirlwind. Emily moved out, taking only what she could carry in her car. Our home felt eerily quiet without her presence, but I found solace in the emptiness. It was a blank canvas on which I could paint my new life, free from her deceit. At work, I threw myself into projects, seeking distraction in the endless stream of tasks. My colleagues noticed the change in me, but no one dared to ask. Mark, ever the loyal friend, continued to dig into Ryan's background. We needed leverage, something to keep him from retaliating. One afternoon, as I sat in my office reviewing a contract, Mark burst in, excitement etched on his face. Alex, you're going to want to see this. I looked up, curiosity piqued. What is it? He handed me a folder, his eyes gleaming. Ryan's got skeletons in his closet. Big ones. I opened the folder, my eyes scanning the documents. Financial records, shady deals, and even a few run-ins with the law. This is perfect, I said, a grim smile forming on my lips. We can use this. Mark nodded. But we need to be careful. Ryan's a powerful man. If we push too hard, he might push back. I leaned back in my chair, thinking, we'll leak it to the press. Anonymously. Let them do the dirty work. That evening, I met with Sarah again. We sat in a dimly lit cafe, the hum of conversation providing a comforting backdrop. How's Emily? I asked, trying to sound casual. Sarah sighed, stirring her coffee. She's a mess, Alex. She's staying with her sister, but she's not doing well. A pang of guilt hit me, but I pushed it aside. She brought this on herself. She needs to understand the consequences of her actions. I know, Sarah said softly. But she's still a human being. She made a mistake, a terrible one, but she's paying for it. I looked at her, seeing the conflict in her eyes. Sarah, I need you to trust me. This isn't just about revenge, it's about making sure she never does this to anyone else. She nodded, but her expression remained troubled. Just, don't lose yourself in this, Alex. Don't become someone you'll regret. Her words lingered in my mind as I left the cafe. I knew she was right, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. The next day, I received a call from Jake. Alex, I've got something. Emily's been contacting a lawyer. I think she's planning to file for divorce. My heart sank. I knew it was inevitable, but hearing it made it real. Thanks, Jake. Keep me posted.
Divorce. The word felt heavy, final. But it was also a chance to move on, to start anew. I decided to meet with my own lawyer, to prepare for the battle ahead.
As I sat in the sleek, modern office of Laura, my lawyer, I explained everything. She listened intently, her pen scratching notes on a legal pad. Alex, we need to be strategic about this. If she files first, she might gain the upper hand. I understand, I said. But I want to be fair. I don't want this to get ugly. Laura looked at me, her expression serious. Alex, divorce is always ugly. But I'll do my best to protect your interests. A few days later, the first article about Ryan's shady dealings appeared in the local paper. It was a small piece buried in the business section, but it was enough to start the ball rolling. Within hours, social media was buzzing with speculation and outrage. Ryan's name was tarnished, his reputation in shambles. Emily called me that night, her voice shaking. Alex, what have you done? I felt a surge of satisfaction. What do you mean? Ryan's furious. He thinks I had something to do with the leaks. He's threatening me. Maybe you should have thought about that before getting involved with him, I said coldly. She was silent for a moment. Then her voice softened. Alex, please, we need to talk. Face to face. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet park, away from prying eyes. Emily looked haggard, her eyes red and swollen. Alex, I'm sorry, she began, her voice breaking. I never meant for any of this to happen. Then why did you do it? I asked, my anger bubbling to the surface. Why did you betray me? She looked down, tears streaming down her face. I was lonely, Alex. You were always working, always busy. I felt invisible. I was working to build a life for us, I snapped. Everything I did was for you, for us. I know, she whispered. But somewhere along the way we lost each other, and I made a terrible mistake. I stared at her, my heart aching. You didn't just make a mistake, Emily. You destroyed our life together. She nodded, wiping her tears. I know, and I'll live with that regret for the rest of my life. For a moment we just stood there, the weight of our shattered relationship hanging between us. What do you want, Emily? I asked finally. I want to make things right, she said, her voice trembling. I'll do whatever it takes. It's too late for that, I said, my voice hard. The only thing left is to end this, cleanly. No more lies, no more betrayals. She nodded, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Okay, Alex, I'll give you whatever you want in the divorce. Just, please, don't make this any harder than it already is. I looked at her, feeling a mix of anger and pity. I want the house, and I want you to stay away from Ryan. If you do that, I'll agree to a no-fault divorce. She nodded again, her expression one of resigned defeat. Okay, I'll sign whatever you want. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, but a new one was beginning. Emily had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. Back at home, I poured myself a drink and sat in the living room, reflecting on everything that had happened. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. I was free from Emily's deceit, free to rebuild my life on my terms. The next morning, I called Laura and told her to proceed with the divorce papers. She assured me it would be handled swiftly and discreetly. Emily and I would go our separate ways, each bearing the scars of our past. As the weeks passed, I began to heal. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies, and slowly started to rebuild my life. Ryan's business continued to crumble under the weight of the scandals, and Emily stayed true to her word, keeping her distance. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. "Alex, I just wanted to check in. How are you doing?" I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "I'm doing okay, Sarah. Thanks for asking." We chatted for a while, catching up on life. Sarah had always been a good friend, and I realized how much I had missed her company. As we talked, I felt a sense of peace, knowing that I was on the path to a new beginning. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to shape. Emily's betrayal had shattered my world, but it had also given me the chance to rebuild it, stronger and wiser, and for that I was grateful. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was ready. With friends by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I knew I could face whatever came my way. The web of betrayal had been untangled, and I was free to move forward, one step at a time. Months passed, and the wounds began to heal. The divorce was finalized without much fanfare. Emily signed the papers as promised, and I got the house. My life slowly settled into a new rhythm, one where the specter of betrayal no longer loomed over me. But the story wasn't over yet. There was one last twist I hadn't seen coming. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was Mark. "Alex, we need to talk. It's urgent." "Can it wait?" I asked, stirring a pot of pasta. "No, meet me at the park. Now." The urgency in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. I grabbed my coat and headed out, my mind racing with possibilities. When I arrived at the park, Mark was pacing near the bench where we had met so many times before. "What's going on?" I asked, approaching him. "It's about Emily," he said, his face grave. "And Ryan."
I frowned. "What about them?"
He handed me a folder, similar to the one he had given me months ago. I opened it, my eyes scanning the documents. But this time, the contents were different. Bank statements, transfer records, emails. My stomach twisted as I realized what I was looking at. "Emily's been funneling money into offshore accounts," Mark said quietly. "And Ryan was helping her." I stared at him, disbelief washing over me. "What? Why?" "I think they were planning to run," he continued. "But something went wrong. Ryan must have double-crossed her, and now she's in trouble." "Why didn't she tell me?" I asked, more to myself than to Mark. "Why didn't she ask for help?" Mark sighed. "Pride, maybe, or fear. But it's worse than that, Alex. I think someone's after her." My heart pounded in my chest. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the pain, a part of me still cared about Emily. Where is she now? "I don't know," Mark admitted. "But we need to find her before they do." We spent the next few days tracking her down. Jake used his tech skills to trace her last known locations, while Mark tapped into his network of contacts. Finally, we got a lead: a small motel on the outskirts of town. When we arrived, the place looked run down and deserted. My anxiety grew as we approached the door to her room. I knocked, holding my breath. There was a pause, and then the door creaked open. Emily stood there, looking even more haggard than the last time I had seen her. Alex, she whispered, her eyes wide with shock. We need to talk, I said, pushing the door open. Mark followed me inside, closing the door behind us. Emily sank onto the bed, her hands trembling. How did you find me? That doesn't matter, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. What matters is that you're in danger. Why didn't you tell me what was going on? She looked away, tears brimming in her eyes. I didn't know who to trust. Ryan promised he'd take care of everything, but then he turned on me. I didn't know what to do. Mark stepped forward. Emily, we need to know everything. Who's after you? She took a deep breath, her voice shaking. His business partners. They found out about the money, and now they're coming for me. I thought I could hide, but... I knelt in front of her, taking her hands in mine. Emily, we can help you, but you need to trust us. She nodded, her tears spilling over. Okay, I'll tell you everything. As she recounted the events leading up to her current predicament, I felt a mix of anger and pity. Ryan had manipulated her, using her loneliness and vulnerability to his advantage. But there was no time for blame. We needed a plan. We need to get you somewhere safe, Mark said. I know a place. Wait, I said, a sudden thought striking me. What about the money? If we can return it, maybe we can negotiate. Emily shook her head. It's not that simple. The money is in several accounts, all under different names. It would take time to get it all back. We don't have time, Mark said grimly. We need to move now. Just then, there was a loud crash from outside. We all froze, our eyes wide with fear. They're here, Emily whispered. Mark pulled out his gun, motioning for us to stay back. Alex, get her out of here. I'll hold them off. No, I said, grabbing a chair and wedging it under the doorknob. We're in this together. The next few minutes were a blur of chaos. The men outside pounded on the door, shouting threats. Mark fired a few warning shots, but it only bought us a little time. I grabbed Emily's hand and led her to the window. We need to go. Now. We climbed out, dropping into the alley below. Mark followed, covering our retreat. We ran through the maze of back streets, the sounds of pursuit close behind. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay focused. Emily stumbled, but I caught her, urging her on. Finally, we reached Mark's car. He threw open the doors, and we scrambled inside. Drive, he shouted, jumping into the passenger seat. I floored the accelerator, the tires screeching as we sped away. In the rearview mirror, I saw the men emerging from the alley, their faces twisted with rage. But we were already gone. We drove for hours, putting as much distance as possible between us and the motel. Emily sat in the back, her face pale and drawn. Mark kept his gun ready, his eyes scanning the road ahead. Where are we going? I asked, glancing at him. There's a safe house upstate, he replied. We'll be safe there, at least for a while. As we drove, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the danger. And now, the unexpected twist that had brought us back together. Despite everything, despite all the pain and anger, I realized that I still cared about Emily. And I would do whatever it took to protect her. When we finally reached the safe house, it was nearly dawn. Mark led us inside, securing the doors and windows. We should be safe here, he said, turning to Emily, but we need to figure out our next move. Emily nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude and fear. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. I reached out, taking her hand. We'll get through this, Emily. Together. As the first light of day filtered through the windows, I felt a strange sense of hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but we had survived the worst. And in the end, that was all that mattered. We were still standing, still fighting. And together, we would face whatever came next. In the quiet of the safe house, I realized that the story wasn't just about betrayal and revenge. It was about redemption, about finding a way back to each other despite everything. And as long as we had each other, there was always hope.